Captain Jake Monroe adjusted his collar for the 5th time. It wasn't nerves, he'd tell anyone that. It was just hot in here. Or maybe the air was too thick. Or maybe it was the way the 9-foot alien queen was staring at him like he was dessert in a diplomatic buffet. Captain Monroe, Terran representative, the announcer called. Jake stepped forward with a grin that had gotten him both laid and sued back on Earth. Across from him stood Empress Visalera of Zeleth, draped in ceremonial robes that did little to hide the sculpted, shimmering blue body underneath. She had the kind of presence that made generals kneel and starships slow down. Jake cleared his throat. This was it. The big moment. Earth's entrance to galactic diplomacy. He was told to be respectful, calm, and careful. Naturally, he decided to wing it. "My Lady Empress," he said, slipping his hand into his pocket. "On Earth, when we want to know someone better, we offer this." He flipped a small coin between his fingers, then held it out to her, smiling like a man who thought charm was stronger than caution. "A penny for your thoughts," he added, smirking. "Though with you, I'm guessing they're worth a lot more." The room hushed. One of the lizard delegates dropped his drink. A Martian ambassador coughed violently. Even Jake noticed the air shift, but he chalked it up to all. Empress Visalera stared at the coin. Then at Jake. Her eyes narrowed like lasers scanning for hidden intentions. "You offer me your token?" Jake laughed lightly. "Well, it's not much, but size isn't everything, right?" A deadly silence followed. Visalera stepped forward. Her voice rang with the kind of power that made planets pause. "In the eyes of the Zelithian Order, a token is sacred. A pledge. A bond." Jake blinked. "A bond? I mean, yeah, humans bond, all the time. Some even swipe right." Visalera extended her hand, took the coin, and held it above her head. "I accept your proposal." The translator in Jake's earpiece must have glitched. "Wait. Proposal? You have offered your token in open court. I, Empress Visalera, claim you as mate." Jake's smile melted faster than a space popsicle near a black hole. "And mate?" There was a ripple through the audience. One delegate whispered, "They do things differently on Earth." Another muttered, "He's bold. Or drunk. I think he just married her." One human aide whispered behind a shaky palm. Jake looked around. Can someone explain the Zelithian definition of token real quick?" Visalera took another step closer. "Among my people, a male who presents a token in public invokes the right of selection. You have selected me." Jake's voice cracked like a teenage intern. No, I was just being friendly." She turned her piercing eyes toward him. "Do Terran males often offer their most intimate pledges in jest? I didn't know it was intimate. It's a coin." She blinked slowly. "Is it not small, shiny, and deeply personal?" Jake covered his face. "Lady, it's from a vending machine." The Empress ignored him, addressing the assembly. "I shall honor his bravery and his offer. Let the preparations for mating commence." The Zelithian guard stepped forward, surrounding Jake with practiced grace and terrifying curves. One of them whispered, "Congratulations, Earthman. Few survive the trials." "Survive?" Jake squeaked. One of his human colleagues tried to protest but was swiftly silenced by a Zelithian hand the size of a microwave. Jake, now sweating from places he didn't know could sweat, attempted a last laugh. "This is one hell of a first date, huh?" Visalera turned, her eyes gleaming. "We do not date. We conquer softly." Another aide dropped to the floor unconscious. Jake was ushered out by towering women, each of whom could bench press a tractor, and he realized the true cost of a small token. As the doors closed behind him, the chamber remained silent, until one alien leaned toward another and said, "Earth males are not to be underestimated." The door clicked shut behind him, and Jake found himself standing in a chamber that smelled faintly of spice, metal, and something disturbingly floral. Two Zelithian attendants approached, each nearly 7 feet tall, clad in flowing armor that shimmered with every step. One held a scroll, The other held something that looked suspiciously like a body-sized measuring tape. State your physical stamina rating, the first one asked in a monotone voice. Depends who's asking, Jake replied. Because if it's gym class, I got a B-. If it's bedroom talk, I usually just say, try me. They didn't laugh. Or blink. Begin pre-bonding evaluation. Remove outer garments. Jake's eyes went wide. Whoa, slow down. I usually get dinner first. Your humor is noted. Disrobe. Look, I think we had a cultural hiccup out there. I wasn't proposing. That was a misunderstanding. The Empress has accepted. The rite has begun. Your hesitation will be noted as anxiety, not defiance. Defiance? He echoed. Okay, no defiance. Just mild to severe panic. He stripped to his undershirt and pants, holding up his hands. Listen, maybe we can renegotiate. I mean, I'm flattered, she's stunning, but we just met. I don't even know her favorite color. Her hue fluctuates with emotion. It is currently receptive. That's somehow both sexy and terrifying. The second attendant stepped forward, holding a glowing orb. Initiate Phase 1, Cognitive Compatibility Testing. Jake squinted. Wait, I thought this was more physical. It is. But first, we must know if your brain is fit for union. Lady, my brain is running on fear, caffeine, and 2 questionable tacos I had before the summit. The orb lit up. A screen appeared midair, displaying abstract images, odd shapes, and what looked like a banana riding a unicycle. Interpret the following sequence, the attendant ordered. Jake stared at the images. This looks like modern art got drunk. Is this a Rorschach test? Incorrect. This is the Empress's dream sequence during hibernation cycle. Do you relate? Emotionally or sexually? Both. Jake pinched the bridge of his nose. I need a translator that speaks horny alien queen, because I'm not fluent. The orb pulsed. The attendant nodded. Mild confusion. Submissive deflection. Acceptable. Then came Phase 2. They called it endurance projection. They strapped a crown-like device to his head. Suddenly he was flooded with holograms of Empress Visalera, floating, laughing, leaning in close, her voice vibrating directly in his skull. I hope you are resilient, she whispered through the simulation. Some mates last hours. Others, minutes. Jake gasped. Lady, some of us are just happy to last 30 seconds and a high five. The simulation increased in intensity. Visalera grew taller, closer, her voice more commanding. Your essence must match mine. Your desires must not waver. Jake was sweating. Look, I have desires. A lot of them. Some are even legal. The system dinged. One of the attendants announced. Candidate shows adaptive wit. Species relies heavily on sarcasm for survival. The third phase came without warning. It was called Ritual Temperance. A test of how long he could maintain calm while being bombarded by stimuli, flashing lights, erotic visuals, and audio of alien moans layered with Terran saxophone jazz. Jake clenched the chair. This is torture. This is sexy torture. The attendant looked confused. You aroused? I'm terrified and mildly turned on. So, Thursday night vibes. Acceptable. They responded in perfect unison. Then a soft chime rang. Final phase, oral declaration. Jake's head jerked up. I'm sorry, what kind of declaration? You must vocally declare your readiness and speak your truth to the Empress. She's not even here. She is always listening. Jake looked at the ceiling. Okay, Empress, your glorious shiny tallness, here's my truth. I didn't mean to offer a sacred token. It was just a coin. But now I've been mind-blasted, emotionally undressed, and gently threatened by 3 Amazonian tax accountants. I'm confused, terrified, half-naked, and being tested for my emotional libido. He paused, panting. But I haven't backed out. That probably means something, right? The room fell still. The attendants looked at one another. A slow smile appeared on one of their otherwise expressionless faces. Truth accepted. Jake looked up in disbelief. Wait. That worked? Phase complete. Just like that? You have passed the preliminary stamina trials. I didn't even do anything. Exactly. You endured. Jake slumped. Jesus. If this is foreplay, I'm not sure I'm ready for the main course. The doors opened. The Empress awaits, one attendant said, her tone softening for the first time. Jake stood slowly. I swear, if she says essence one more time, I'm gonna need a therapist. He followed them into the glowing corridor, wondering how a tiny coin had led him to the biggest, weirdest job interview of his life, with benefits that might include royal back massages, or death by cuddling. Jake walked through the corridor, flanked by two statuesque guards who looked like they could crush starships between their thighs. One of them glanced at him and said, You tremble. I'm not trembling, he muttered. I'm vibrating at a frequency of regret. They arrived in what looked like a meditation chamber, though the glowing floor and the scent of something oddly citrus made it feel more like a spa owned by a dominatrix. In the center stood Empress Visalera, robes gone, now dressed in ceremonial armor that somehow covered less but implied more. I welcome you, mate, she said, voice like silk dipped in authority. Jake raised a hand. Look, before we start anything vigorous, I just want to clarify one thing. Do you actually think I'm qualified for this? She tilted her head. You endured the trials. You did not flee. Your heart rate was elevated but consistent. And you made it just about your own stamina. That is rare in males. Yeah, well, humor's a defense mechanism. Especially when someone says mate with that much eye contact. She stepped forward, looking him over. Explain your kind's obsession with size. Jake blinked. Pardon? You referred to your token as not much. Is this shame? Modesty? Or poor craftsmanship? Jake coughed. That was slang. Human men joke about size. It's complicated. She nodded solemnly. On Zelith, size is irrelevant. Application is sacred. I'd love that printed on a pillow, he said. Visalera circled him, humming softly. Your people are paradoxical. Crude, but creative. Small, but spirited. Arrogant yet interesting. Jake felt like a lab rat in a thong. Look, I'm just a guy with decent charm and above-average panic control. I didn't mean to start an intergalactic romance. You offered a symbol of unity, she replied. Not out of obligation, but instinct. That is rare. Lady, I offered a vending machine quarter. And yet, she said, stepping closer, it was yours. You gave freely. Without political gain. That is the truest gift. Jake swallowed. So, this whole mate thing. Is it permanent? Only if you survive the final challenge. Oh great. There's always a final challenge. She gestured toward a sleek panel. You must share your truth. In unfiltered form. In your words. Not for me, but for the galaxy. You want me to monologue? She nodded. Speak what you would say if you thought no one was listening. He stared at the panel, then cleared his throat. Okay. Truth. Here it goes. My name's Jake Monroe. I didn't plan this. I was sent here because I'm charming, sarcastic, and, let's be honest, the other guy got food poisoning. I joke because I'm scared. I flirt because I've got no clue what I'm doing half the time. I handed over that coin because I panicked and thought humor could defuse the tension. I didn't know it meant marriage. I didn't know anything. He took a breath. But I stayed. I didn't run, even when your people stripped me down, zapped my brain, and made me stare at 50 shades of alien emotions. Maybe that counts for something. The panel beeped. Visalera smiled. You are honest, she said. And flawed. Perfect. I'm sorry, what? Your imperfections are desirable. We have chosen poorly for centuries, warriors without warmth. You are warmth cloaked in madness. I've been called worse. She raised her hand. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. You have completed the rite. The bond is affirmed. Jake rubbed his temples. So I'm really your mate now? Symbolically. Emotionally. Legally. But physical unity is optional. For now. For now. He echoed, already sweating. She leaned in. I expect curiosity will overcome caution, eventually. I expect I'll need therapy. She stepped back. Then let us seal the ceremony with a gesture your people call a hug. Jake chuckled. Yeah, humans are big on those. We also high-five and sometimes panic kiss. She tilted her head. Interesting. Initiate all three. Wait, all three? Before he could protest, she enveloped him in a hug that felt like being smothered by a warm boulder. When it ended, she gently slapped his hand, then leaned in. Is this how panic kisses begin? She whispered. Jake froze. Usually with tequila, but yeah, something like this. The kiss was brief, surprisingly gentle. When it ended, she simply said, You may now return to your people. But you are claimed. Jake stumbled out, dizzy and disoriented, already picturing the headlines. Earth's most unexpected ambassador. The man who survived the mating trials. The idiot with the coin. He didn't know if he just saved Earth or doomed it to more hugs. Either way, he was in deeper than he'd ever been. And weirdly, part of him didn't hate it. The news of Jake's bonding exploded across the galactic networks before he even made it back to the summit hall. By the time he walked in, fully dressed again and only slightly traumatized, dozens of species had already formed lines, some to offer congratulations, others to confirm that Earth males were, in fact, capable of deep-level union despite limited surface area. Jake sat down, head spinning, while his comms device buzzed nonstop. A message from Earth HQ read, Did you really get married? Is that a metaphor? Please clarify. Another ping. UN Emergency Council forming. Did you start a war or a honeymoon? He sighed and typed back. Not sure yet. Might be both. Empress Visalera entered behind him, regal and radiant, her expression as unreadable as ever. She addressed the summit calmly. I confirm the bond. The Terran has demonstrated emotional resilience, wit, and reckless generosity. All traits deemed sexually dominant in our culture. The translator paused on that last line. Jake heard chuckles ripple through the chamber. A four-eyed ambassador leaned over to another and whispered, We must send our males to Earth for training. Jake waved weakly. Please don't. Visalera raised her voice again. The Zealoth now recognize the Terran species as viable for diplomatic union and potential cohabitation. Jake whispered to his aide. Did I just get us intergalactic Tinder rights? You might have legalized cross-species dating, the aide replied. Also, we're getting dozens of mate requests via the official channel. A hologram lit up above the table, showing live analytics. Earth's desirability rating among compatible species had jumped 7,000%. The phrase, small token, was trending in 16 alien languages, most of them tagged as adult content. Someone from the Mars colony posted a meme. When she says size doesn't matter, but he flips a coin and marries an empress. Jake groaned. I've become a punchline in multiple star systems. A reporter floated over on a hover pad, camera drones in tow. Captain Monroe, care to comment on your interspecies engagement? It wasn't planned, Jake said, but I guess it's official now. Apparently, I've got magical coins and dangerous charm. The reporter blinked. What would you say to the millions of single males across the galaxy who now look up to you? Lower your standards and carry spare change. He deadpanned. The Empress looked over. Your humor continues to disarm. It is arousing. Jake turned red. Please stop saying that word during press conferences. Another ambassador stepped up. Do all Earth men carry such powerful tokens? Jake glanced at the quarter still in his pocket. Depends. Sometimes we carry pizza coupons too. Want one? Visalera interjected. Only he may offer his token to another. To do so would be infidelity. Relax, Jake muttered. I'm not passing out coins like candy. The Empress smiled slightly. Good. I would hate to challenge another female in combat. It might stain my robes. Jake looked at his aide. She's joking, right? The aide shrugged. Honestly? No idea anymore. Jake was escorted to a final gathering with the summit leaders, now being hailed as an honorary bridge between worlds. They offered him gifts, artifacts, drink, and one sentient fruit that tried to flirt with him. He declined politely. As the summit ended, the Empress pulled him aside. I must return to my sector. You will remain here to represent Earth. But the bond persists. Long-distance relationship? Jake joked. She leaned in. Distance means nothing to zealot desire. You are in my thoughts. Constantly. Jake rubbed his temples. That's sweet and horrifying. Before she left, she handed him a small crystalline object. This is our sacred reminder. If you ever wish to reinitiate physical communion, insert this into any zealot portal. I really hope that's not a euphemism, Jake said. It is both. With that, she departed, leaving behind stunned silence and a man who just wanted a drink and an ice pack for his dignity. Later that night, alone in his temporary quarters, Jake looked out at the stars, sipping from a bottle of something blue and mildly flammable. His comm buzzed again, this time from a Terran talk show host. Captain Monroe, quick question, what's it like being the galaxy's hottest bachelor? He replied. Exhausting. And nobody warned me about alien paperwork. A second later, another message came through. From Visalera. Sleep well, mate. Dream of me. Or prepare to explain why you didn't. Jake turned off the screen and dropped onto the bed. Next time, he muttered. I'm just handing out business cards. But deep down, he knew, he changed galactic diplomacy with a coin, a joke, and the worst case of interspecies flirting in recorded history. Not bad for a guy who barely passed diplomacy training and thought, token gesture, was just a figure of speech.